Hi, my name is Lucy. I'm a professional tropical astrologer, and I'm here to talk about rising signs, also known as the ascendant sign. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the water rising signs, that is Cancer rising, Scorpio rising, and Pisces rising, but I will be posting videos for all of the rising signs, so definitely subscribe to my channel if you are interested in learning more about your chart. So the rising sign, let's talk about what exactly the rising sign means. So the rising sign is the sign that rules your first house. This is a very important sign in our charts. It represents the tools that we are born with, what comes naturally to us. Oftentimes the sun sign represents traits that we are growing into over time, and the rising sign is the tools that we are born with. It's how we see the world, and it's also how other people perceive us, especially upon first meeting us. Oftentimes the rising sign is more noticeable than the sun sign. And the chart ruler, your chart ruler, is the planet that rules your rising sign. So this is why it's very important to look into and learn more about your rising sign. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about water rising signs in general. So if you have a water sign as your rising sign, you are very connected to your emotions, and you tend to view the world in terms of your emotions. So how you're feeling is going to affect how you're seeing things, and you're very intuitive. You can connect with others. You're able to tell how others are feeling very easily, and you're also able to pick up on vibes very easily. So if something feels off, you're usually right, and if something feels right, it's usually good for you to go for it. You really value an emotional connection to whatever it is you're doing. So, obviously in your relationships, this is super important. In your job, in your whatever you're studying, you need to feel like an emotional connection. If you're not feeling that, it's just not gonna be good for you. You tend to be creative souls. So you may be artistic, musical, you're able to kind of channel your emotional energy into something creative. So we'll get into more of that specifically when I go through each rising sign. The other thing about you is you may be more reserved upon first meeting people. You are more protective with your feelings because you are so connected to them, and you like to make sure the person is trustworthy before you really open yourself up in that way. But you guys are really sweethearts, even Scorpio, which gets a little bit of a different, reputation. You really are sweet, sensitive people. Scorpio is very sensitive. Maybe that's a lot of times online I see things about Scorpio, but I feel like they're put into a box. But Scorpios are very sensitive, Scorpio risings, and Scorpios in general. So let's talk about Cancer rising first. So I'm actually a Cancer rising, so this might be like the rising sign I know the most about. So as a Cancer rising, we are ruled by the moon, and the moon is the planet that changes signs the most frequently. So naturally, our emotions change often. We are moody. We are somewhat moody. And we are very connected to our home. This means our physical home, our actual living space, as well as our family, our home, and our past. Even if you didn't have the best childhood, you do still feel this pull, this connection to home. You want to create a home. You want to create a safe space for you. In terms of appearance, us Cancer risings being ruled by the moon, we tend to have round features, round eyes, round faces, and we come off pretty sweet and shy sometimes, and a lot of times children and animals actually feel very comfortable with us because we are very nurturing. Cancer is the sign of the mother. So a lot of us really value maybe being mothers, but that's not always true. Cancer is just focused on nurturing. So you might be a dog mom who you just absolutely adore your dogs. You could want to nurture your garden or nurture your business. So it's a lot about nurturing and a lot about being connected emotionally. And the other thing about Cancer rising is we might be very connected to women's issues and fight for women's rights. And even if you're a male Cancer rising, you see the value in the feminine energy. Another example of a Cancer rising is The Weeknd. He's a male Cancer rising, and you can see he has a round face. He kind of looks like the moon in a certain way. So that's what us Cancer risings tend to look like. But yes, in general, we are somewhat moody because the moon does change signs every few days, so it's very important to pay attention to what sign the moon is in. I literally have a calendar where I write down, I'm looking at it over here right now, I literally write down what house the moon is going to be in my chart, and it tells me on the calendar what sign the moon is in, so this is really important for us. Okay, let's talk about Scorpio Rising. Scorpio Rising is ruled by Pluto. It's co-ruled by Mars and Pluto, and it used to be solely ruled by Mars until Pluto was more recently discovered. But I really think about Pluto when I think about Scorpio. Very intense energy. Scorpio is probably the least openly emotional than the other water signs. It's the most kind of closed off in this area, although Scorpio Rising, you do really feel your emotions very, very deeply. In terms of how you look, this is, you know, everybody says this, but it's very true. You have very beautiful, very intense eyes, and you can really focus on something, and you know, people really feel your power. You are noticeable in certain ways because you're so mysterious, so people want to learn about you. They're like, who is that person over there? I'm so curious. So Cancer Rising comes off more like a sweet type of vibe, where Scorpio comes off a little bit more mysterious. And you are very skilled at getting to the bottom of things. You are connected to emotional depth. You really want to know somebody on a very, very deep level, which is why you are so closed off at first, because you're protecting yourself and you need to make sure somebody is trustworthy. You may have experienced things growing up being ruled by Pluto where you had to go through transformations, and you maybe have been put in situations that were difficult. But the thing about you, Scorpio Rising, is that you really learn to lean into these transformations. You really learn to grow with the changes that are presented to you, and this makes you very powerful. Scorpio Rising tends to be very cool, calm, and collected in situations that may be hectic or scary for other people. You are very, very intuitive, like all the water sign risings, but Scorpio in particular, you're good at predicting patterns, especially in like the business world. You can kind of tell like what are people going to be interested in next, what's going to happen with the stock market and things like that. If anybody's good at it, Scorpio, you guys are good at it. Scorpio Rising, Scorpio in general, but with Scorpio Rising, you're really ruled by Scorpio, so that's why it comes very naturally to you. And you might even have predicted events in the past and they've come true. Now let's discuss Pisces Rising. Pisces Rising, you guys are ruled by Neptune, so you're very dreamy, and you tend to be a little bit like, you're very connected to the spiritual world, so sometimes people might think you're like little lost in your own world, but I love that about you, because you do have such a strong spiritual connection. And since Pisces is the last sign in the zodiac, you have an understanding of all people, all different types of people, and you're very accepting and very loving. You are probably the most accepting and loving of all the signs, because you do have this understanding of every single sign in a way that nobody else does. Like I was saying, you're very connected to the spiritual world, so I encourage you to develop this side of yourself. Be careful not to get too lost in it, but honestly, you have such a strong potential to use your spirituality for good. You have a very strong imagination, and you are probably the most creative water sign. A lot of Pisces risings are musical in some way. You might be a good singer. I believe Janae is a Pisces rising. She has a very beautiful voice. She has very strong Pisces energy in her chart. And you are Pisces is a mutable sign, so you tend to be very free-flowing, somewhat flexible, and you don't like to be kind of boxed in. You like to be able to go where you please. And I think I mentioned again, all the water signs have very pretty eyes. It's just kind of a signature trait of the water signs. In Pisces, you have this kind of dreamy look to you. Like, you might even look like you're from another world in some way, and you tend to be creative in the way that you dress. You in particular tend to be very creative and artistic in the things you try with your hair and your makeup. So I hope this video helped you understand a little bit more about your rising sign. Definitely subscribe if you want to learn more about your chart. I offer chart readings on my website, lunarxlucy.com, which is linked below. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will be back with more.